There's not a lot of attorneys, I think, would stick it out in terms of being partners, but we have very strong aligned core values.
Welcome to a special edition episode of the Game Changing Attorney Podcast featuring the CRISPEX Firm of the Year award winners announced at the 2024 CRISP Game Changers Summit, Eric Chaffin and Roopal Luhana, the co-founders of Chaffin Luhana.
Those challenges we've had in terms of the business is if you can get past them and work to grow as an individual and recognize and allow each person to lean into their best self, that's what a partnership should be.
I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of CRISP, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. CRISP started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer. I sat down with Eric and Roopal to discuss why defining your firm's culture creates alignment and accelerates growth, the importance of staying resilient, leading with empathy, and being values-focused, and how investing in your team leads to better outcomes for your clients.
We all continue to evolve as people, and I certainly do. At the end of the day, we say it's not the result, but you are driving to make that result and change the lives of your clients and hopefully create positive change in the industry.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, I want to remind you that we aren't beholden to any sponsors or run any ads on this podcast. This allows us to present all of our episodes raw and unfiltered. I'm not going to push any made-to-order meal services on you or try to save you any money on your car insurance. That being said, I have one small request. If you receive any value from this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. Pay the fee so we can keep this podcast free. Eric and Roopal, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So you guys have been on a few episodes in the past. Like we've had you at the summit and some of those panels. And then I know, Eric, you've been on the podcast, but the two of you together in person, this is a special treat. So first of all, welcome. And for those that have not listened to you on the podcast before, how did you two team up? What's kind of the origin story of Chaffin Luhana?
Well, I mean, it started long before. So I was coming out of the U.S. Attorney's Office and Roopal was at a firm in New York, and we started working together pretty early and on a completely different type of litigation than we do now, which was securities fraud litigation. So we left the firm we were at and we started a mass tort practice at another firm. And then whenever we started that practice, I went in as a partner and Roopal was an associate at the time. And then we were there for about a year or so, and there were some legal troubles, I'll put it that way, at that firm. And we quickly realized that our values and sort of what our focus was in terms of our clients was different than what we were experiencing. And so we started trying to figure out how to start our own firm. And then we were fortunate enough to do that in January, 15 years ago now, almost 16.
January 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Eric said, they really weren't aligned with who we are as people. They didn't have like a similar moral compass. And so we wanted the ability to work with people who their actions were aligned with who they are as people, and then have the autonomy to work on the cases we wanted to work on. And so that was our origin story. And so we started with our motto of doing good by doing right. And that really meant something to us. We wanted to build a team that was aligned behind that sole purpose and that focus.
So I was going to ask, what was that shared vision? But in talking about the motto of doing good by doing right, what does that look like in practice?
It's just being your best for the clients and showing up with every possible thing you can do. And so we have core values behind it. And so it's about driving results. It's making sure you're putting out an excellent work product. It's making sure you're compassionate and authentic, right? Because we're representing personal injury clients who are going through so much, and it's their darkest time in their life. And it's about really being there for them and guiding them through the process and making them better off at the end of the day. And so that's a large part of it. It's about being in it together, having a team mentality, and not carrying someone's weight, but chipping in when it counts. And it's about being innovative, with technology, with data, and making things simpler and easier and more efficient. So those are our core values, and that's how we do what we do every day.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think if you'd asked us that question 15 years ago, it was pretty simple for us. We came from a place where it wasn't always about the clients. It wasn't always about the utmost ethics. And so, we're kind of born from that sort of like we see something different. We want something different in terms of what we were trying to create. And then you fast forward to like today, and now so many personal injury firms out there will say, well, we're about compassion and empathy, and everyone has a foundation now. And so, in some way, and maybe it's just a chip on my shoulder at my age, but I feel like we were doing it before it became cool to do it. And so now when we think about it, it's, the idea of being data-driven, but heart-led. And I think that heart-led part's really important because it sets the tone across the organization. So we talk with you or others about AI, for example, how do we stay and create ability to be more human connective with our clients, with each other, with others in the context of AI, and really freeing us up to do that type of work on a different level or a different scale. And so it's changed a bit, and feel really proud of the last 15 years and what we've been able to do together. It's been fun. So
yeah, I think it's the roots of who we are as people. We both come from humble beginnings. I was born in India. Eric was raised in West Virginia, and we were just taught to be hardworking, be resilient, and just try to make a difference. And so that's part of the fabric of the firm, really. And so while, Eric, you're saying like people say these things, so there are a lot of people and a lot of attorneys that go out there and say, yeah, I'm empathetic, I'm here for you, I'm this and that. But then their actions don't carry forward and like aren't true to those words. And so we make our words actually mean something. That's, like I said, the definition, the fabric of who we are. That's our DNA of the firm.
I'm glad you guys went there, because I was just going to say that there's so many firms that will say that, we focus on doing the right thing and caring for our clients. And in a way, I think it almost create a degree of, I wouldn't say frustration for you, but it can come across as inauthentic. Now, I know that you two live these values. Obviously, it's inherent to who you are. But why do you think there's such a disconnect between what people say and what they do, particularly when it comes to lawyer advertising?
Because it's hard. I think the authenticity of who a person is going to shine through. I mean, you think about jury work and work with jurors, they really connect with stories emotionally, and they see authenticity. And so I think for us, there's a bit of a callus that can build up at times in terms of what the general public is saying. I think it's with our clients. I sitting with like my kids when they were younger and seeing corporations who are doing like community work, and they're like, oh, they're just doing that to try to win your graces in order to sell you a product. And so there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of cynicism, obviously. And so I think it's just being authentic and genuine who we are. And Michael, I mean, I know we relate a lot with you because of your background and your story in terms of immigrant family, hardworking, those core values, and it's really meaningful.
Yeah, so I think it's just a lot of times there's what the public can see, and we talked about this even with like tort reform, where the community will see, well, Nationwide is on my side, right? And they see a lot of that advertising, and then they look at lawyer advertising, and they think, well, these are the bad guys, right? These are the people that don't care about me. These are the people that are taking advantage of me. And you guys have gone head to head with these corporations. You've seen the decisions they make, and a lot of the profit-driven decisions, perhaps, and have decided to take a different path, which to me, it seems the reason why a lot of firms don't take the same approach that you do is that in the short term, sometimes it's not the best decision for the business, but it is the best decision for the client. And you have to really have a long-term outlook to operate in this way.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, although, we talk about KPIs all the time, and we certainly have KPIs at our firm, but the best KPI is client gratitude. And so if you don't lose sight of that, and you understand it really is about the client and how to create the best experience for them and create even those surprise moments, which is something we learned from you guys, just for the clients. And it's usually that surprise moment is nothing terribly complex. It's just being human with them. It feels better. Doing this 15 years in, I feel like you can do it another 15, 20 years or longer and enjoy it because of that versus just being a business, just being for profit margin, just being centered on, trying to make the next buck against somebody else or over somebody else. And that giving back part of it is many different ways, I think. So,
I mean, I think it's so empowering to be able to do what we do. It's such a privilege serving people, right? Like it is kind of driven by ourselves because making a difference, having that meaningful impact, creating change in someone's life is all empowering. Like you feel so good. I'm grateful that we get to do that every day. And so that kind of fuels us and drives us as well, that impact.
Yeah. we just got really serious.
Well, I was just going to say, like, how do you sleep at night with all the good that you're doing? And, so it probably makes it much easier to sleep at night.
We certainly laugh at times because when you say doing good by doing right, and then we added at some point every day in everything you do, and we're like, holy crap, like who can ever meet that standard? That's an inhuman standard. And so we are human, everyone is. And it's hard to step back and say, don't judge people and you don't want to. You certainly can live by the standard. You just have to live by it yourself, and other people are going to live at a different standard. It is what it is. But we have fun too. I mean, it's something as a firm, and it takes, I think, a lot for both of us to really like have fun because we get so busy and so passionate about what we do. And so to step back and make sure to laugh at ourselves and make jokes and do things, it takes a little bit more work for us at times, but we do it. So,
how would you guys describe the culture of the firm?
I mean, I think we have a fantastic culture. We have an ethical GPS, and people live up to it. And I think for any firm, you actually have to define the culture. It's like, how do you do things at the firm? And for us, it's our core values. How do you show up for a client? How do you show up for the team? How do you show up when you're before judges? It's with the core values. So I think we have a culture where everyone's in it together. Everyone is really aligned, and people are focused on what the vision is, what the goal is. And we set that, it's from the top down, and everyone's guided by that mission of changing lives by doing good, by doing right. That defines our firm.
Yeah, it does. And I think just as a very practical sort of street level, it's, work our freaking asses off. We do. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Everybody on our team works their butts off. But if you go into the Slack channel, you look at the friends and family part of it, or the pets channel, like people are so complimentary of each other. And I can't tell you how many times in a month people will reach out to me, hey, I'm going to do this or buy something for somebody or send a gift because someone at the office, has a new home or different things that are going on. And so a really caring group of people. And I think as we've grown, and certainly now we have, offices that are fully staffed in 3 different states, a lot of remote people as well, it's hard to maintain culture, but the team kind of does it on their own. And I think the thing that probably just sticks out to me as a person is just how generous they are with each other. From up front with us, we try to find those compassionate people. And at times you kind of question yourself, well, wait, are we driven enough? Do we need to get there? Because that's the way we are as people. But we've been able to keep that sort of compassionate, empathetic side. And I think that's really like our truly secret sauce, like that secret recipe, and it can go on, but I think that's really something special we have.
Well, we're a services industry, and like our lifeline is our team.
Yeah.
We're very intentional about it and really thoughtful about it in terms of who we bring on board.
Yeah.
And so we're hiring, we're evaluating people, we're firing people if they don't meet our core values. And so we're attracting, empathetic, caring people who want to make a difference. And so they're not going to treat themselves differently, like with the team, than how they treat the clients. It's consistency, right? And you see that.
Well, I just have to give a shout out to Jess, because I have to say, like, whenever we started working with Jessica a number of years ago and really coaching me in particular in terms of like recruiting and building a recruiting funnel, which sounds kind of sanitary. And really, when you talk about trying to find compassionate people, like how do you do that with a hiring funnel, to where now we have a full-time recruiter, a full-time, head of HR, chief of staff type of person, as well as Amelia, who's our director of operations. And they truly understand the people that we're looking for, able to work with the team leads in order to develop and get the right people on board. We have the onboarding process to bring them on board. And so it really, it's a culture now that's like self-sustaining, which is so cool because it allows us to go and focus on rideshare litigation, which Roopal's so heavily involved in, or myself doing different pieces of trial work or other operational things. And so it's exciting. It's kind of a self-sustaining system.
I think part of it is, we invest in our clients, right, in terms of developing our client journey and taking care of our clients throughout their case and even thereafter. But it's part of even investing in our team. Eric, you just talked about like whether it's a hiring funnel or the onboarding process. We have a professional development specialist who is engaged in building up, training the team on different skill sets. And that's constant throughout the process of being with the firm. It just doesn't stop when you come in the door. And it's like the more you give back to the team, the more they give back to the clients and you and each other.
And the firm is not a nonprofit. In fact, that you guys have come off a record year. You hit the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing private companies. You've expanded into new markets. The team has expanded. What do you attribute that to? Like, what have been the primary drivers of that growth?
Roopal's done a great job in terms of leadership mass torts and getting appointments and we built an incredible platform through work with you guys. Obviously, it's a lot of work. We can't just come and get great ideas and not do the work. You got to do the work, obviously. But I think it's a combination of those things. Pat's done a great job, Pat Booth, with our PI department and building it out. And, there's just so many parts of the business that really take off. And so we're at 100 plus people now. I don't know that we'll grow much more than that because I think there's so much in automation and AI that we're able to do that I think we're becoming more efficient. And so, we've got some really incredible years coming up the next couple of years as a firm, just projects we've been on for a while. I don't think any one thing in particular is not like when we started, we had one big case that we just knocked out of the park. I mean, that was a big win. But it's a lot of things coming together, I think. So
yeah, agree. I mean, you've helped us with the blueprint for success, incorporating traction and the L10s and setting clear processes, having data, having the right people in the right seats is a large part of it. Working on our brand is a part of it and getting our brand out there to attract the right talent, to attract the clients, in addition to building our expertise as well, whether it's, the expertise in getting better at serving our clients in terms of the client journey or just an expertise in the cases we're working on, whether it's complex mass tort litigation, catastrophic injuries or other personal injury cases, whether it's auto, trucking, premises liability cases. So we are experts in that and we're innovative. And so we're not afraid of technology and integrating it in every facet of what we're doing. And so that's kept us ahead of other firms.
It's interesting. I was just talking at a conference a couple of days ago on litigation finance. It was pretty much all private equity, a lot of large firm AmLaw 100 transactional attorneys there. Them talking about us as law firms, the plaintiffs firms, and talking about the mass tort bar in particular, and how so many of them on the stage would say, well, attorneys don't go, and particularly plaintiffs firms aren't doing a Six Sigma program. And I'm listening to it and I'm like, no, we're not. But we work with Chris, for example, and I feel like we could go toe-to-toe with anyone that's on a Six Sigma program and be as good, if not better, because of what we learned with you guys. And I think that's something that, has really positioned us well in the marketplace, and mass torts in particular, is we don't just litigate and try cases. We also have really the business development part and also the client focus, which I think it gets lost so much because when we think about growth and scale, people don't necessarily naturally think about the clients and how to better service them, whereas that's something that you guys have always emphasized to us, and it really is part of what attracted us to you guys initially. So
I know we've talked about a lot of the good and a lot of the growth and doing good by doing right, but what about the challenges? Like what are, for you guys, what's been the biggest challenge in growing the firm, in building the leadership team? Like what's been the most painful?
I mean, it's exhausting. It's all consuming. The firm and what I do is part of, it's another child sometimes, and it comes at a cost. So that's certainly hard in terms of delegating and bringing on the right people on board to delegate certain things to. COVID was hard in terms of getting past COVID. And we decided to grow instead of, minimize or,
Sure. Yeah, we did grow. It's there's so many different growth and possibly inflection points over the past 15 years. And there's some that we could look back and really stand out. So when we came off of the Super Holly Grip litigation against GSK, that was a great win for us. We had challenging losses against Procter & Gamble and Fixit and Candidly. And, but we really stuck by our core values and did a number of appeals. And it probably wasn't the most expeditious business decision, but it really taught us a lot about who we are as people and what we can get through. And I think that's served us well over time. Roopal was a partner from day one, obviously, with the two of us together and starting our firm. But I was your mentor initially. And, I think I at times had challenges of, Roopal growing, taking on a different role. I think the same thing for, the two people who worked together a long time is, a changing, evolving relationship and partnership. And, looking back at the last 15 years and seeing, the work that we've done together and, relationship-wise, I mean, it's something that there's not a lot of attorneys, I think, would stick it out in terms of being partners, but we have very strong aligned core values. And those challenges that we've had in terms of the business and things that you grow through is if you can get past them and work to grow as an individual and recognize and allow each person to lean into their best self, that's what, a partnership should be. That's what a broader partnership should be, which is now we've started broadening our partnership at the firm. It's an exciting time. I mean, the next, couple of years of the firm, there's just so so much to be done and things that we're achieving, and financially there's some really good stuff coming up for us. And it's been worth the push. I think it's been challenging at times, but worth the push. So
I think we've just gotten better at everything we do. We just have far more clarity because we have that experience of running our own firm for 15 years, but then practicing law for over 20 plus years.
Sure.
Right. I think
almost 30 for me. God.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
24 for me.
So on that note, I'd love to ask you both. So one of the things I admire in both of you is just your resilience. But one of the things I'm curious about, so I know both of your prints, and the perfect and correct and right, and they're just being of so high integrity. But when you dedicate yourself to something, and let's say even in some of these litigations, and you dedicate so much of your life to it, and like you're representing people who have been wronged, and you commit yourself to this fully, and then a ruling doesn't go your way, how do you move on from that? How do you pick yourself up?
You have to, as long as you know you did all you could and did your best and put your everything into it. And that's what we do as a firm. We put our all into it. You think about it and think about how you could have done certain things better. But at the end of the day, if you did your all, you should feel at peace. And it's hard coming to terms with something like that, but you eventually have to, because if you continue to go down the other road, you're not going to recover from it and not be able to do the next best thing and not get involved in the next litigation where you are going to make a substantial, meaningful difference.
We know life's not fair. And we know sometimes the bad guys win, right? Like it's an unfortunate reality. And yet you keep fighting, right? And you move on to the next thing. And it just, is there ever a question of, it's less about, is this the right thing to do? And more about, do I commit this amount of myself? Because there's trade-offs. I think that's what I'm leading to, right? Like there's the level of commitment you have to build what you've built is substantial. And I think that's something that most people would not be willing to do.
I think that's particularly true in mass torts. I think people don't have the staying power. It's kind of like going into PI and do advertising. We see people come in, they're there for 6 months, they sink $1 million in, and all of a sudden they're like, why aren't I making money? And it takes time. The same thing with mass torts is that there is a longer business cycle and it's challenging. It takes time. And so I think it's scaring more and more people away. So you have to have staying power, you have to have resiliency. But I think it goes back to, and I wish it was original for either one of us to say, but whether it's, Nick Rowley or Rick Friedman at Ethos or, Michael Cowan talks about it, just really that understanding our role. And when you get in front of a jury, our goal is to win, but that's not our role. It's really the jury's decision about what happens. Our role, our purpose is to present the case in an honest way, an authentic way, and to lean into the difficult places, make sure we don't blindside about it, and present the case so that they get to make a choice, they make a decision, and then to be able to sleep at night that we did the best we could with the circumstances for the client in presenting their case, and hopefully give the client, regardless of what happens, some closure and sense of justice, and also make them feel heard, which is really important. But really our role in understanding that, I think, is just critically important. Otherwise, you're right. Like, how do you go to sleep at night? You're going to lose. That's the nature of it. So particularly if you're trying the challenging cases.
I think we all continue to evolve as people, and I certainly do. And as we said, I've been practicing for 24 years, and I still have a tough time creating boundaries. When does it end? When do you give it's really difficult. It comes at a cost to other things, your family, your personal life. But if you're making that difference, at the end of the day, we say it's not the result, but you are driving to make that result and change the lives of your clients and hopefully create positive change in the industry. And in terms of the Uber sexual assault litigation, we want to create that reform in the industry because while they're a disruptor app and have changed the transportation model, it doesn't have to come at a cost of safety. And so being able to create that change and be part of it, that's pretty amazing if we're able to do it or when we do it more so.
So you guys won the CRISPEX Firm of the Year award at the summit this past year. And I'm just curious, how would you describe what the firm looks like today versus we started working together in 2018. So almost 7 years ago? So what are the biggest changes?
I mean, everything has changed, I think, since then. Our size, how we do things, the clarity that we spoke about. I don't think previously, we had a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year vision. We had the firm motto of doing good by doing right, but we didn't have our core values defined. We're just far more thoughtful and intentional about everything we do at the firm. And I don't think any of that was really in place before, Crisp.
We're struggling, I think, as a firm. We didn't want to be a business. We want to be corporate-like because that's the companies we're going after. And so there's some way we were apologizing for that. So then having systems in place, having training and formalized onboarding and KPIs and performance in order to give the clients the best service, I think was a struggle for us. So that was a challenge. And I think also just sheer numbers, we've gone from 30 people to over 100. And it's not because we just want to be bigger. It's because we have the clients who need the help. That, is why we built the team that way. Just in the last 6 months to a year, even just the automations and AI and the focus. And it's always exciting to have that collaboration with you guys because you're always thinking that way. And so it's just the level of innovation just continues to grow at our firm. And, like I said, when I was at a private equity conference earlier this week and hearing what's going on in the industry and what, private equity is looking at and looking at firms, like we truly are so different than so many of the other firms out there. And not as many in terms of the Crisp ecosystems, a lot of firms doing the same thing in the ecosystem, but so much different than the rest of the industry, which is really exciting.
Yeah. So I know I asked what was the most challenging aspect of all this, but on the other side of this, what's been the most rewarding of just building this team of 100 plus people and, being able to be involved in the litigations you're involved in and ultimately make the impact that you're making? Like, what's been the most rewarding aspect of that? Is it worth the trade-offs?
I mean, I think so. I don't know if there's a singular thing I can think of, but the clients we're representing obviously have been through some catastrophic injury and they can't go to work. They can't possibly feed their families. They are living an isolated existence potentially because of their injury. And so getting them, whether it's through a verdict or a settlement, easing that burden for them, that not only changes their life, but everyone around them and their families' lives. So that's pretty rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, there's just limited time, limited energy we have as an individual. And so to be able to create a platform that we have in terms of the big litigations we're involved in or the PI cases that we handle, or, I just tried a case in January. It's a smaller case, a $10,000 offer, and we got a $130,000 verdict. Not a big case, but we were able to do it. And we did it in order to shift the dollars for the clients and that market and the recoveries. And so the strength of our brand, the strength of our firm, the ability to have collateral impact far beyond any of us could do individually, that's the exciting part. And it's so exciting to see young lawyers come into our firm and want to try cases or take depositions or to help lead one of the big litigations and be able to give them that ability and a platform and to have the impact with the clients. And then I do a lot of psychodramas, to sit down with the clients in a psychodrama and help them feel fully heard and then take that story and present it to a jury. I mean, it's some of the most exciting stuff we do.
So as we come to a close, this being the Game Changing Attorney podcast, I'll ask you guys each this. What does being a game changer mean to you? And Eric, I'll start with you because I want Roopal to close this out.
Good. The biggest thing for me right now is really the innovation. I think that what's going to happen in the next couple of years, there's a unique opportunity for firms to change how they're doing work in order to free up the time to have a greater human connection with their clients. And so to me, like to be a game changer in the current state of the industry is to really lean into the technology in the best way possible. And for us to be able as a firm to really to be data-driven but heart-led, I think that's something that's really important.
I think it's having a great imagination. I think it's having foresight and being able to innovate to make and create lasting change is being a game changer.
I want to give a huge thank you to Eric and Roopal for taking the time to join us on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that I can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of my book absolutely free at GameChangingAttorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot me a text at 404-531-7691 and I'll answer any question that you've got for me. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it'll help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on our interview with Eric Chaffin and Roopal Luhana, see the show notes for this episode in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.